Well, hello, ladies, gentlemen, and whoever, whatever you identify as. Welcome back to the delayed stream from Friday after a careless driver lost control of his vehicle and destroyed the box that controlled my internet outside near my house. So we've had to push it back to today, and I do apologise for the delay, but we're here, we're live, and we can catch up and get back to where we were. And as always, I'm joined by John and GoldenagedGeek. Welcome, gentlemen, and how are we?
Oh, good evening, Gobby. Hey, look, the best laid plans, eh? You know,
just something like that, yeah.
Coming in, losing it on the snow and ice, taking a side swipe, taking out the telephone exchange. Who could have seen that one coming?
Oh, exactly.
But you know, here we are. We're 48 hours later. We're doing it anyway, and more than happy to be getting into series 3 of Doctor Who tonight. How are you, Golden Age Geek?
No, I'm doing fine. As you said, you know, this season is an absolute banger. I'm very looking forward to discussing the episodes in it.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Because it is. Yes, it absolutely is. And well, you know, I mean, in other news, you know, I'm still surviving. I managed to upset some J-bots yesterday.
Oh dear.
I made a mistake, Gobby. I told them the truth.
Right. As discussed, guys, I'm just going to have to quickly.
Gobby's just dealing with some stuff, so we'll keep moving this forward. But yes, I spoke to some J-bots on Twitter yesterday. I told them the truth. There was one of them, and they made a post, and I just couldn't really ignore it because it was like a plaintive plea for help, really. Someone please put a lame dog out of its misery kind of post where this one J-bot was saying that, you know, everything is all about men now, and it's just like the patriarchy has taken over, and she doesn't even know if she should stay a fan of the show. And I just told her the truth that yeah, the patriarchy has taken back over, and it won't be giving up that control anytime soon. So, you know, live with it or leave, and that's exactly the choice we were given 4 years ago, isn't it, everybody? And we made that choice, and we stuck it out, and we have this new era coming. So they have to make the same choice. But as usual, they don't like it when you tell them the truth. So I got all sorts of horrible things said to me, including, you know, wishing I'd hurry up and die, you know, because it's just unacceptable. But hey, that's modern Who fandom. And we all know what it's like. But, you know, better things to talk about because we're here for Series 3. And, well, we're going to have to get cracking because Gobby's going to be dealing with a little bit of business for as long as he has to. So he all started off with Smith and Jones and Jadoon on the Moon, and really quite a cracking opener to the new series, which introduced the incomparable Freema Agyeman as the new companion Martha Jones. Freema, who had played Martha's sister or cousin or something similar in Doomsday at the end of Series 2. But she was so good as an extra on that Russell cast her as the next companion. So you know, Martha then steps in to take the Jones family forward into time and space. How did you find this when it first hit the screens, Golden Age Geek?
Well, I thought this episode was you know, breath of fresh air. I think Jack mentioned it on the last stream we had, but you know, as I've gotten older, I've sort of not really I appreciated Rose too much, but then when you look back on her and sort of look at her actions and how she treated Mickey, you kind of conclude that she's not the nicest person. So with Martha, she's a very different person, and I feel that she is more sort of respectable and she cares for those around her, you know, a bit more than Rose. So I think I gravitated towards her a bit more. But in terms of the episode, it is a very exciting premise. You take something incredibly simple, you know, a hospital in London, and then the rain, and you have these space rhinos. It's very fun, and it is just what Doctor Who is at its best, which is taking the mundane and then just turn it into a massive sci-fi concept.
Well, as an episode, I think it's quite successful at blending the comedic and the dramatic, isn't it? Because it's got some brilliant comedic moments in it, but at the same time, the actual stakes in the story, with an entire building full of people asphyxiating to death, you know, and I personally have a bit of a phobia about asphyxiation, so maybe it impacts me a bit more, you know. But I find it quite quite gives me sort of goosebumps with the stakes of the episode. You know, it really, that idea of your oxygen just running out of an envelope and you're on the moon, really quite crazy ideas, you know. So definitely hitting the new series' stride in a big way. And, you know, Tennant also on just cracking form here. You know, the whole pretending to be a patient shtick, and the dropping back and forward with his tie in time. And the Juduno also effective stompy monsters, aren't they? I mean, I remember watching this thinking, God, I wish we could have the Suntarans back. But that was, of course, going to have to happen the year later. But there's certainly reminiscent of Suntarans in their militarism, which are doing. But the idea of them being just ultra sticklers for the letter of the law, with no compulsion about compulsory execution. I mean, they're quite terrifying, really, aren't they? You know, I mean, they're quite, you know, they could so easily be seen as a fascistic enemy. It's just that, as in the context of the RTD era, they kind of tied up with the Shadow Proclamation. So they're kind of tough guys on the side of good guys, aren't they, Richard?
Yeah, they're not exactly police, but they're not exactly bounty hunters. They're sort of a mix between the
they're
two.
mercenary police, aren't they? It is an interesting idea about, you know, the universe, the rest of the universe having some different ideas about ethics. Really, the ethics of policing, the ethics of what's allowable. You know, because certainly going around disintegrating people just for asking them a question, that's a bit much. I mean, if a British Bobby did that, there'd be some trouble, I reckon. But you know, that's all part of Doctor Who taking ordinary life and making it that bit more absurd, you know, and to show us these things about the world. There is a lovely episode, very strong, good fun, leaves you in no doubt, you know, and also I think it's a very strong introduction for Martha, you know, because I think what this story really emphasises is the double doctors, Dr. Smith and Dr. Jones.
Yeah, Martha very much compliments the Doctor.
Yes, but also making a point of it. I mean, you were talking about how her character is different from Rose. Well, there's a really key example, you know, because doctors, real doctors, are all about dedication and self-sacrifice, aren't they? You know, to become doctors. So it says something about their character as people. And that compassion for people is something that Martha shows time and time again in her time on the show. Her ability to empathise. You know, and in season 4 as well, in the Doctor's daughter, and she has to reach out with her empathy to communicate with that dolphin alien, but can't even speak English, but she's able to do that effectively, and that's part of Martha's strength as a character. So I really enjoy, you know, lots of aspects of what Freeman was to bring to the show, and this was a cracking start. So, have we got any comments popping up about Smith and Jones? Let's have a look. Oh, lots. Sadako's. Oh my God, essay. Okay, all we got. Building a 3D car dashboard while listening. Wow, multi-skilled. And I was about to see A-list Smith and Jones. Yes. I'm not reading that out, Time Profit. I think it might apply even more to never mind. But June are very childish, don't like them. Well, they're kind of simplistic. Yeah. Space rhinos, but space rhinos are cool. I'd like to see space lions. You know, I mean, we've had them with the fowls, but I want space lions done better. I'd love to bring space lions to Doctor Who. RTD, there's still time if you're listening. And I'm determined to that. Yeah. So again, Satoko doesn't like the domestic side of the companions. I might have said that. He's asking me who I was going to mention. All right. Well, look, I think this story is what it is, isn't it? It gets the series off to a start. Is there anything else you feel we'd want to say about it?
No, I think the Doctor and
We're
Martha
good,
just
aren't we? We're good.
instantly
Yeah.
hit it off. I think it's
Well,
a very good introduction.
let's do a score for it then. What do you
I
reckon?
I'd say a solid A.
Solid A. There we go.
Yeah.
Ready? Straight away. Would I agree with a solid A? Yeah, I think I might more naturally go to a B plus because I do enjoy the story, but maybe it just doesn't quite have that extra bit more that makes it A for me. Always a hard quality to pin down, so I'll go for B plus. You go for A. That's a pretty good start. All right, so and then straight after that, it's Gareth Roberts' first major script for the show, the Shakespeare Code. And I was really happy to see Gareth come on the writing team because of his years of writing for the New Adventures. I was quite excited to see Gareth come on, and I really like this story. I think it's one of the best historicals NuWho's pulled off. The use of the setting, the use of the globe, what a brilliant backdrop, and the acting. Who was the actor who played Shakespeare? Oh gosh, I forget. I had to look it up. But he really sort of brought that feeling of Shakespeare's life, but at the same time made him modern, and a little bit risky and stuff. So that was really cool. And the use of the Carrionites, and always with Doctor Who, when you get magic, and there needs to be a science underneath it, which is sort of quantum physics, I suppose, quantum mathematics. With the spells of the Carrionites, and of course it all got rounded off with Harry Potter, and we also found out that Elizabeth I doesn't like number 10 very much, so that set up a bit of a mystery. There was a lot of stuff in here, and as Sadako just says, I think the production wise was excellent for this one. The historical stuff was well done. It was well done, and it was definitely in the realm of a fun romp. What did you make of it?
Well, I just looked up the actor for Shakespeare. It's
Thank
Dean
you.
Lennox Kelly.
Yes. Well, he did a wonderful job with it.
Yeah, you had Shakespeare in this episode. He was sort of like a pop star of his time.
Which he was,
Yeah.
That's the whole point of what Gareth wanted to say about Shakespeare with his story. Is how he was the Mick Jagger of his day. And that flamboyance and frankly randiness. It brought that across really well. And it had fun things to say about being creative as well. This story. And where does that inspiration come from, and it is a kind of magic, so all in all, I was really, really happy with this. I thought it was a great second episode, and it did the job lovely. I would go for another B plus.
I think I'd go with a B, not so much B plus. I would go for a B. And something that Sadako said in the comments, with the whole thing of the Doctor still being hung up on Rose, I think that's the only thing that this season, like the only thing that drags it down, is the Doctor's inability to move on from Rose. And of course, naturally, if you're looking at it from a character perspective, of course he's going to be hung up on Rose. But the audience, I feel, if you're going to dedicate yourself to a new companion, you do have to just kind of have a fresh slate.
Well, I think let's try and take a little step back on this, because the issue with Rose and the Doctor and going for the platonic relationship as hard as they did in series 2 is that it did leave nowhere else to go other than make the relationship real or split them up, and the show wasn't going to do that, the first one, because I know it's so much of controversy with what we've been through with the damn Phasma and stuff in recent years, but I'm very firmly in the camp that the Doctor should not be sexual with their companions.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't think I'll ever be out of that. But we have to think about the general audience, because the way that the Rose relationship was handled meant that the audience was trained, the new audience, the general audience, was trained to expect a bit of this will she, won't she dynamic in the show. So simply replacing the companion, the audience, the general audience might expect that to restart. Now it's will she, but will they, won't she with the new companion. But as far as the showrunner had gone, he couldn't stay in that. He couldn't keep it in that place. The show's not going to go anywhere if it's constantly teasing a relationship that can't happen. So he has to step back from it. And the only way to step back from it is to make the Doctor absolutely crystal clear that he's telegraphing he's not suitable to have a relationship with, because he's in this state where nobody sensible would start a relationship with someone in that headspace. Would you say that was so? Would you say that was a fair look at it? You know, because he's obviously not ready, is he? He's seeing Rose in every corner. You know, he's haunted by her ghost almost. You know, the ghost of a woman who disappeared into a different unit, into a parallel universe. So I think that's all. Actually, I actually don't think the show had much choice. But I mean, as we'll find later in this series, you know, with the criticisms of Martha's character by the feminist section of the fandom, has been that she was hard done by, but it doesn't make any sense at all. You know,
I think if anything, it showed her strengths.
I think especially where Martha ends at the end of series 3, you couldn't have a more empowering message. But if you're in a situation that is never going to work for you, don't stay in it. I think that's a really important message to put out there, and I also think that when we will talk about this, no doubt, when we get later into the season to human nature, but the racism argument is completely missing the point. But it's showing the accuracy of historical context, you know, and rather than shy away with it, they dealt with it and showed Martha dealing with both racism and classism excellently, while obviously maintaining her cover, living in that time period, you know. So I think these are the biggest controversies that there are about Martha, you know, the Doctor's attitude to her. But I think we could see that it had to be that way with this companion, and whoever the companion actually ended up being, it was going to have to be, this can't be Rose Mark II. And you know, and I actually handling race properly now gets criticised because modern times, you know, that's how I see those controversies. Anyway, where did we come to? Shakespeare Code. I don't think I gave it a score. Did I go B+ again? I think it's another B+. You know, it's fun, it's great, it's a romp, but it doesn't hit that classic level for me that an A needs. It isn't essential viewing. You know what I mean? You could skip this episode and be all right, but it's well worth the watch if you've got the time. So I think a B is fair for it. Did you agree with that? Where were you at?
I think a bit lower than a B+. I'd probably say B.
You could. That's right. You can go for a B. And then we moved along at a right old pelt. Let's go and see New Earth again in Gridlock.
This one is a favourite of mine.
Now this one interests me because I've never quite landed with it, but I know that it's very popular in fandom. So I think this one could be an interesting one. Tell me about Gridlock. You kick us off here.
Well, so we go back to New Earth and we find out that there is a massive traffic jam and no one's sort of helping the people there, and it's all kind of a mystery. So the reason I like this one, I think it's just a fun one. You have the Doctor bouncing around in this like vast lane of vehicles, seeing all the different cultures of the universe. You see the cat people, you see different animal species, that sort of thing. It makes the universe feel very lived in. I mean, I don't think it's one that I can really pinpoint the exact thing I like about it, but I just like the concept of it, and I'm a fan of like sort of futuristic visions and cities. I like that sort of thing. So yeah, I just thought it was a fun one. I don't think there's a lot that I can objectively say, oh, that resonates with me or something like that. But I found it to be fun.
Well, Gridlock's the third story in a trilogy, which starts with End of the World and then New Earth and then Gridlock in Series 3. So it's Russell taking us to this 50,000 AD time period, or whether exactly this is supposed to be put. So it's kind of building on things, kind of a continuation, and of course, expanding on the mystery of the face of Bo. So excuse me. So it's pulling on these threads which have been established, and I think that's part of what's the strength of the story. Is that it does that, and I also think perhaps the best thing about the story for me is the way it breaks down the Doctor. Because it's a Gridlock, but he has to face up to his own bullshit, including his bullshit attitude. Taking Martha where he's taken Rose before, because he just wants to have a wisp of the ghost of Rose. He's that sad and pathetic, bless him. But then the bullshit parade he's been trying to project, breaks down, and he admits, just who he is, just how absolutely alone he is, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, scenes that show us the deeper feelings of the Doctor, I've always enjoyed. From part 4 of the Massacre, back in original season 3, where the Doctor admits he doesn't quite know what to do now. All the companions have gone. What should I do with myself? These moments of existential crisis are quite rare. And I think that's something that Gridlock did well. And it represents a turning point in the Doctor's character, that he starts to move away from being this broken, sad man to finding a new way of being. So, which eventually will take him too far, of course. We know that. So there's all those elements to it. What didn't work for me was the Macra. And chucking the Macra in as this anomalous threat at the bottom of the subway system. I think the Macra deserved so much better than that. And I think they were really thrown away. So I don't like that about Gridlock. But I mean, the idea of, basically the city computers shut the city down to save everybody, and, the situation could be fixed and stuff. I mean, I don't know how realistic it is for people to go round and round and round and round a motorway for a decade. I really don't. But it's an interesting story conceit, and it does allow for a great and exciting triumphant ending, bringing it all to a crescendo. So the whole thing ends well enough. It's just never quite come together as a whole for me. The Sadako says, I never quite got a big deal with Gridlock, just found it noisy, random and boring. Well, I don't think I found it boring, but I definitely found it disjointed. So, to me, I'd actually have this as one of the less successful stories of the season. But that's definitely down to personal taste. What do you reckon to that? Any?
No, I agree with your points. I think it's more sort of a thing that this is one of the episodes that when I was younger, and I've since gone back and watched Classic Who, I feel like if I'd watched Classic Who beforehand, because I believe the Macra were villains in a Classic Who story, is that
The
correct?
Macra Terror, yes, season 4, Patrick Troughton.
So
it's a missing story, but it was reanimated about 3 years ago.
So I feel like if I'd seen, that first and had an idea of what the Macra were, and I feel that they're very different in the animated story, then I can see how someone would be irritated at how they treated the Macra in this episode by just making them sort of villains, but they're kind of just in the shadows. There's not really much of a focus on them.
They're really animals in this. I mean, the story even makes the point, so, they must have devolved down there. So, they're just giant animals. So they're very difficult to really give something like that a sense of threat or agency, or just, don't fly too far, too low. That's it.
Yeah,
If
there's
you
not really
don't
much of a
fly,
character to them.
there's not much to it, is there? So, I think it was just a way of having a little bit of drama in the tube system more than anything else. But it just doesn't seem it didn't seem like it needed to be Macra. It could have been any other kind of threat like that. So maybe it just sits wrong because it's too obviously fan service. Oh, Macra, I heard about them. Maybe that's it. But oh well, that's just one of the weaker. That's what I felt was one of the weaker parts of it.
Yeah.
But the main thing was that there'd been a plague, and the plague needed to be fixed. That was the actual important stuff. So it was good fun. But for me, I'm only going to go a C on Gridlock. What would you give it?
I would say B+ for me.
B+, yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, our emotion and how we first encounter these stories is ever so important.
Yeah.
And you're right, because you're giving me your authentic emotional response to how good you found the story at the time, juxtaposed to how you're looking at it now. As an older fan, I was looking at it different, but it worked better for you than for me. But that's okay. It's still got something for everybody, and it's definitely worth a watch. So another good story, because the sea is not a bad mark by any means. And then we hit a two-parter. Which this is much more contentious amongst fandom. The Daleks in Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks two-parter, and this was big flagship tentpole. The Daleks back in space. Not the Daleks back in space. Daleks back on screen. Coming out at the Empire State Building, all mixed up with Depression era USA and the Statue of Liberty, and really joyous American accents in this. And quite a lot of razzle dazzle. This story, quite a lot of razzle dazzle, but down in the basement, something sinister is plotting. How did you come across the story? How did you find it?
I am going to say that I found this two-part of this story to be one of my least favorites of this season. I do think there are some good things to it, but so just to give my whole thoughts and everything.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, the CGI and the backdrops that they use for Manhattan is very dodgy, and if you pay close attention to it, it does look very off. But I can appreciate it for what they were doing. This episode is the episode that has Andrew Garfield in it, who is now a massive star, but he started off in Doctor Who. And I feel like
yes,
he did a pretty good job in this one. I think the thing that sort of annoys me the most about this episode is the whole concept of the Daleks trying to be human and having a hybrid. I don't think it works that well. I think the Daleks work well when they are trying to reign supreme over the universe. Anything that isn't them has to be exterminated. I don't really think the Daleks sort of being very progressive and changing their ideas works very well. I think the thing that makes the Daleks so menacing is that they are stuck in their ways, and any sort of objection to their goal will end in death.
Yeah, but isn't the story itself making that very point? But here is Dalek Sec, the leader of the cult of Scarlo. The Dalek above all other Daleks, who was told to think originally and creatively in order for the species to survive. I mean, that's Sec's entire purpose. That's why he exists. And if they had an army, it was in that Genesis arc, and they lost it all down. It got wasted. So Universal Conquest Plan number 1 is out, and what's left? The 4 of them. And he's trying to follow in the footsteps of the Dalek Emperor and Davros. So no pressure, mate. You've only got to rebuild the species from scratch. So I think Sec's idea of leaving the shell. I think it's bold, and I think it's quite a daring idea for the story to tackle. Sek's ultimate failure is because even the Daleks closest to him can't abide. They can't make the leap that Sek can, because they don't have the exceptional ability to do that, which is why Sek was made the leader in the first place, and then they turn on him. Like the Daleks always turn on their creators, or threatened recreators in this case. But Sek's Daleks don't turn on him right away. They're going along with the plan all the way and giving up, making sacrifices, giving up their very casing to make the systems work and stuff, you know. So they're all sacrificing for this common aim, but then, you know, they find that the result is just something that they can't live with, so they kill him, because that's how the Daleks solve all their problems. I thought all of that was fascinating. Daleks are always most dangerous when they're desperate, and this was a bunch of desperate Daleks. And you know, when the Dalek appears above the crowd of people above the tent city, and starts blasting random people, I mean, that's their power. The power and terror that they can inspire is in full show there, you know, and just how bad it would be for planet Earth if the Dalek plan succeeds, and you know just how desperate the Doctor has to get in order to stop them. You know, get electrocuting himself on top of the Empire State Building to get his DNA in the mix. I'm not quite sure how that works, but it's Time Lordy stuff, isn't it? So you know, there was a lot in the story that was trying to say something about the Daleks in a different and new setting, and I respected the story a lot for that. So I probably reacted to this story strongest one so far this season, actually, because to me it's got the most meat in it, whereas the first three stories were kind of good fun but lacking that extra depth. So I would normally sort of look to make a story, to score a story like this quite highly. I think it does fall down a bit. I mean, it's not perfect, certainly. If I consider, I consider how the sort of the human Dalek side of it is a bit cheesy, how that's all resolved, you know. But interesting enough all the same. So I enjoyed the episodes. I enjoyed the razzle dazzle and the showbiz side of it as well. You know, can't beat a good dance number in Doctor Who. It did cheer part one up quite a bit. You know, to have a bit of that razzle dazzle in there, made it exciting, and it did a lot to sell you that we were in New York in the 1930s. The CGI, I never looked too closely at things like that. You know, I mean, the purpose of the CGI is just to do enough to convince you, you know, so that it doesn't break the immersion of the story. That's the real purpose. I mean, a successful special effect is the one you don't notice. As a general rule. You know, so I felt that, as like you, I could see where they were going to go. No, it's not 2023 standards. No, but hey, you know, this was 2023, so
I certainly wouldn't crucify the episode for the CGI. Just an observation.
No, that's fair enough, and you know, it's I mean, it's tragic. This whole era wasn't filmed on HD, really, isn't it? You know, same problem for Deep Space Nine. But nevertheless, yeah, it is what it is. It was good fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed tuning in for the second week, but I don't think it quite escapes its own weight. So I think it's another B. But the story I've enjoyed best this series so far, certainly.
I would say B minus, but just considering when you were talking about the show business side of the episode, I will give massive praise to this episode. for one particular aspect, and that is the music. And as we've discussed before, the music in this era is absolutely phenomenal. Murray Gold just shines, and the original music track they created, "My Angel Put the Devil in Me," is just an absolutely phenomenal song. It really
It
is.
is,
Sometimes
isn't
I find
it?
myself
Yeah.
listening to it. Yeah.
Yeah, if the music was great, yes, and I also the cliffhanger was great per se. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, whether part 2 pulled it off is the question mark about the story. But I appreciate what the story's doing, and it definitely worked better for me than for other people. But you know, the "I am a human Dalek," great cliffhanger. It's a great cliffhanger. A couple of points from Sadako here. I really didn't like the idea of the Doctor being able to sacrifice himself before the Daleks, begging them to kill him too after Solomon's death. The Doctor used to be far smarter than that. And I don't like the idea that the Doctor's intelligence now is compromised by his emotions. It seems to defeat the point of bringing him back on screen. I think the Doctor was upset, wasn't he?
Yeah,
You know,
this Doctor is
I
always
mean, I
being
think
a very he very much responds quickly to his emotions. I'd say that's something that Tennant's Doctor has a lot on.
I also think that perhaps isn't as absurd as it appears, because I think his intelligence knew full well that if the Daleks wanted him dead, they would have just shot him. So the very fact they were talking to him said they wanted something out of him. So the actual fact by "come on then, kill me, just get on with it, kill me," is actually a way of saying, "No, actually get on with it, take me away and stop threatening these other people." Does that kind of make sense? It's kind of like a reverse psychology on them.
Yeah, I do see that. The Doctor's always got a trick up his sleeve. I feel that, you know, that he is pretty knowledgeable on this. He knows that the Daleks always have some secret intention.
Or is that just evidence of how fandom brain can fill in the gaps and excuse weaknesses in the story? I mean, you can look at either way, but that would be how I would kind of rationalize that as a fan. If I
Yeah,
look at that scene, and think about it, I think, okay, he's actually doing a head job on them. Kill me,
yeah,
kill me, kill me, because he knows they can't, or he would have done. So it's not as crazy as it looks. It's a way of making them focus and get on with it. Well, you
yeah.
know,
The best
I'm
writing.
just a way of looking at that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, the best writing always gives you enough information so that you can, you know, see what's going on, you can process it, but then leaves enough ambiguity to where you can actually fill in the gaps.
Well, Sadako just like, I didn't get the sense he had something up his sleeve there. You know, I think I kind of agree he didn't, but that's kind of the point. What else could he do? He didn't have some great weapon worked out to, you know, or is it to stop the Daleks' control system or something. All he could do was blag it in that moment to try to save lives. And I think that the Doctor willing to put himself on the line to do just that, I think that's exactly who the Doctor should be in that situation.
I don't think it's out of the question to suggest that maybe the Doctor, you know, did think that maybe they would kill him right there and then. Because if you think back to the Runaway Bride, which is only a few episodes prior, he was ready to just let himself die in the process while getting rid of the Rachnos.
Well, it's certainly got a bit of a crazy, but this is part of grief. People who've lost so much can be so half in love with death, you know. So it's all it all feeds into his grief at having lost his planet, and this is all part of what he's working through. You know, as a character, this is all the Doctor's arc, and I think that the confrontation with Daleks in part 2 was quite consistent with that. Go on and just get on with it, kill me, yeah, right. Stop boring me, take me to your leader. You know, that's what was going on. Okay, so following on from the Daleks, and we then had a one-parter with Stephen Greenhorn's script for the Lazarus Experiment. Was that Steve? I thought I said no, not Gattisford. That did. What am I looking at there? You know, I could have sworn Mark Gattisford wrote Lazarus Experiment, but no, he acts in it, doesn't he? So no, it was a Stephen Greenhorn script. And so back to modern day times, and I think a great story hook. You know, what would we do if we could defeat death? Which is what this story is about. turning back time, turning back age, making you young again, making you healthy and whole again. God, blimey, this all feels very tempting to me right now. Well, I don't know that I want to risk my DNA in a Lazarus machine all the same. Not how it works out. It's got some side effects. But this is a good, effectively being set, contained within a tower, within a tower, office tower. This is a based under siege monster story. And the show does it great. Talking about CGI, oh dear.
Yeah, not a good one.
Oh, no, I mean, as I say, I mostly ignore it, and the CGI has never ruined the story for me. But I would have to say, ooh, ouch, not the best. So that probably hasn't aged very well over the last 16 years. Jeez, is it really 16 years since this was out? But I think the whole moral conundrum side to this story, exploring the ethical dilemma of what if you could make yourself young again, then to find out that of course it's all too good to be true. Monster chase, big final set piece in a cathedral, which really was an impressive ending to an impressive climax for the episode. So another one in the good fun romp category, with a few little teasers for what might be actually going on with the series arc as well. How did you find it?
I think this episode explores a lot of very good and interesting themes. Of course, you have Mark Gatiss' character who has resurrected himself essentially, and you have him faced with the Doctor, and the Doctor is someone who, of course, has a very expansive, life. And we always think as humans that, oh, wouldn't it be good to live forever? We can do this and that, but the truth is that once you live too long, you're going to see more and more death. All the people around you are going to die, and you're going to see everyone just wither away while you're just continuing to live out. So I think it's good that the Doctor is able to comment on that, and it very much does tie into this overall theme of the season about being alone and finding
that's
purpose.
on the individual level. But what if this technology was successful and then nobody ever died because everybody was perpetually being made young again? And I mean, what would happen to the number of people in existence would just balloon, wouldn't it? So I think when the Doctor first hears of this idea, his reaction is, "Oh God, they're going to destroy themselves if they do that." That is kind of like, this sounds like a good plan for individuals, because individuals don't want to die. But when you think about what it would mean for the planet as a whole, to totally transform what life was about, it would be the end of humanity as we know it. And I think the Doctor's very sensitive to that.
And there's a good message in there that it's not about how long you have to live, it's what you do with the life that you have. I think that's a very good message to send to people, that you should be, getting out there, doing whatever you can, fulfilling, having a fulfilled life. That's really good. And a key theme that the Doctor, comments on is that the, the fragility of life is also one of the main things that makes it exciting, because it all could just end, in a few seconds. It all could end tomorrow. But if you make the most of what you have, then you're going to be very fulfilled.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what this story is trying to get across. And also, with Lazarus himself, he doesn't have a good reason for more life, other than
It's
he's
very much
greedy.
selfishness.
Other than he's greedy. That's it. It isn't that he wants to dedicate himself to some great work that he needs more than one lifetime for, or some great altruistic purpose that might justify how far he goes. He just wants more, and he's not prepared to settle for less. And he's just a purely amoral, greedy character. So he definitely deserves the comeuppance of trying to cut these corners with the meaning of life itself. I mean, it's certainly a good moral ending. So I feel this was a better story than Gridlock for me. It is not in A tier. No, it's not. And I would have to mark it down on the CGI actually, if I really think about it, because it does detract from it. I'm going to go for another B. What about you?
Yeah, I would say B as well.
Wow, gosh, we're zipping along nicely here, halfway through the series coming up, because now we are. Oh my God, it's that one. Oh no. Well, you know what's happening now, don't you? The first Chibnall episode of NuWho 42. But before we discuss that, it's also a Graham Harper directed episode. So it's got Graham Harper directing on the one hand and Chris Chibnall writing on the other. So, you know, when we look at the story, you know, it got to balance that out. Seriously, though, this was Chibnall's very first story for Doctor Who. I don't know. Had he done Torchwood at this point? I'm not sure about the timeline of here. So he might.
Series 3 of Doctor Who.
It?
Yeah, Series 3 of Doctor Who was airing while Season 1 of Torchwood was.
Yeah, so he'd been working on Torchwood too. But the first Chris Chibnall chip in the script for the main show tells you everything you need to know about a Chris Chibnall script, doesn't it, really? Because what's its fundamental basis? A countdown.
Oh God, the countdown.
Now, when this story was first pitched at us as an audience, the real-time aspect of it was a big part of it, because like this is going to be a Doctor Who story that's going to happen in real time, you know, and it's going to be so exciting because you're going to be sharing the same 42 minutes, you know. So it's supposed to be kind of a live time Doctor Who episode. That was kind of the radical concept behind it. I mean, it does drive along at a pace because it has to, because that's the whole thing, is to develop that sense of limited time. But at the same time, I mean, I like the central concept of it. The idea that you take this fuel from the sun and you unwittingly scoop up life forms at the same time, and then it causes havoc with your systems until you send the life forms back. I think that's all quite cool. I like the reflective scene where Martha ends up with the hot chap in the escape pod, and she tries making that rather awkward call home. You know, where she's trying to tell her mum how she feels and how scared she feels, but also she feels that she can't be honest with her. You know, she doesn't want to make her mum terrified. She feel like if she told her mum the truth of where she was, she'd terrify her mum. So that's Martha's caring nature caught in a dilemma that forces her to not be honest, and that's quite an interesting sort of dilemma to put her character in. It possesses you, let's wear a hat thing, let's wear a welder's face mask thing. It's good scary monster stuff, definitely. I can certainly see how that would work really well for the younger audience. Sadako has pointed out that it's basically a Planet of Evil ripoff. Well, kind of got a very good point there, because you've got possessed people with glowy eyes, and you've got to return the thing you took from the planet, or you'll never escape, you'll never survive. It's just this time it's the sun. So yeah, I think that it would be impossible to deny that there was an homage to Planet of Evil in the kind of script there. Tadaka also says, I feel the Doctor should at least have tried to save Michelle Collins' character at the end, because she sacrifices herself to deal with the welding mask monster who was formerly her husband, doesn't she? Yeah, I suppose so. But let the character make the sacrifice. I think it added to the weight of it. I mean, it created a decent amount of tension, but the Chibnall part is just so garbage these days. These are the one episode. These are the one person's episodes I don't want to watch anymore from the previous series. So I know we all feel. A lot of us are going to have a strong feeling like that. Have you got anything you don't know add about this one?
No, I think it very much does show all the classic Chibnall tropes. But here's the thing: I don't really see what went wrong with Chibnall because he has written some very good stuff. I mean, Broadchurch, I very much enjoyed, and some of his episodes where he was the lead writer in Torchwood, I absolutely loved. Countryside, which is an episode in series 1 of Torchwood, is just absolutely phenomenal. I don't really see what went wrong with him.
What would you say was the most Chibnall part of it, Sadako asked? For Countdown.
Yeah, it's always
Has to be
it's
the
always
countdown. It's always a bloody countdown of a Chibnall script. But I did, with this one, it wasn't objectionable because it was the first time. Yeah, definitely a bloody countdown. Here's some falsely inspired, falsely incited drama. Well, I mean, someone was asking, what did I feel went wrong with Chris Chibnall? God blimey. It's a kind of question, isn't it? I at some point Chibnall got cut, and then he got totally sold on the whole sort of identity politics stuff, and I think that the pressure on the Doctor Who showrunner was such that he buckled to it, and he wasn't really in control of his time producing the show. And then the instincts that he did have tended to be shit.
Yeah, and to address time profit, I completely understand that, something like Broadchurch and Doctor Who are completely different shows. One is it's a drama, it's a soap, and the Doctor Who is very much sci-fi. But the thing I'm getting at is that characters are characters, and to make them intriguing, you have to go
but
through the same.
also with Broadchurch, it's season 1 that gave that show its reputation, and that was a novel. So series 1 of Broadchurch was an adaptation. Series 2 onwards was new content, and that's where it went.
So it's
So
very much
I don't think Broadchurch is as great an indication of Chibnall's ability as a showrunner than some people think. And I think actually, if you look at Chibnall's career, he burns out as a showrunner pretty quick, or his projects get cancelled or something like that. There was an Arthurian thing he was involved with before he got Doctor Who, which was a rival to Camelot, but I can't remember what it was called. But it only had one series. And I think that was a bit of a blow for his self-esteem. So when it came to to getting back in the chair, I just think the pressure that had been heaped on Moffat just fell on top of him and he crumbled. And and then he tried. He actually did try to innovate with Series 11. Whether it was good innovation or not, he was trying to innovate. It didn't work. And the reality is that although Series 11 got off to this most incredible, damn near 11 million viewers start, it collapsed down to under 5 million by the end of Series 1. So it wasn't doing any better at retaining an audience than the previous version of the show. And it had to let all these potential new viewers piss through its fingers. So even at the end of Series 11, the BBC was not happy. And that's why Series 12 was so much of a course corrector. Let's throw in the old monsters again. But then Chibnall still felt, I need to make my mark. I need to innovate. But then he innovated in a way which was completely stupid, trying to pander to an audience that was never going to support the show. At the same time as thinking the way to add more lore is to destroy lore, and it just isn't. Then Flux was another attempt to wildly course correct, and I think he just completely lost the plot by that point. I think he was in a full midlife crisis. So, to answer the question, what happened to Chibnall? I think that's what happened to Chibnall. The bullshit going around the industry got to him, and he bought it all up, and it's ended up with him not having the clarity of vision or the guts to really lead the show like a showrunner should, and then it ended up, on the shoals, and that's no surprise. And it's going to be night and day to see the lead that RTD is going to give now.
Yeah, I never knew that Broadchurch was originally a novel. I guess Chibnall's one of those people who can
Only
take
series
something.
Only series one,
Yeah.
but a lot of successful things are adapting something else.
But I guess Chibnall is one of those people who can only sort of go halfway. He has to sort of take what other people have done before, and then after he's given full reins, doesn't really do a good job. It's a bit
Well,
like
when,
Game
when,
of
you,
Thrones.
when you're starting off by adapting a damn good book, you're off to a damn good start.
Yeah, but then when you're free to do your own thing,
with the quality of cast as well, with Tennant Coleman, it was going to pull in the viewers, and the story held on to them. So I mean, he got lucky with Broadchurch. There was definitely an element of the right project at the right time. I mean, Broadchurch was cancelled after 3 seasons, so it was never going to run that far. But effectively, it was the same issue that Game of Thrones had. It started off adapting solid material and fell off a cliff when it had to make it up itself. People
and
really
many other
savage,
things,
especially series 3 of Broadchurch. It's heavily slammed and rightly slow because it's just not very good. So there's I think the Broadchurch picture there's more to it if you dig into it. Rating success alone isn't the entire picture, although it is the measure of something. The ultimate measure of success or failure is always ratings. Anyway, so who do you have? I settled on a C for 42, didn't I? Do you feel the same? Would you give it higher?
Yeah,
Less?
I'd agree with you. It's definitely the weakest of the season, I feel.
Right, well, we better move on to the infinitely far better two-parter, because here we are. It's Human Nature, Family of Blood.
Oh, this is my favourite Doctor Who story of all time.
We are now, we could just jettison the first 7 episodes of this series, because now series 3 delivers stone cold classic. This two-parter is an absolute stone cold classic. Brilliantly realised in the setting. So many bonus points for the exploration of the Doctor's character, for showing how the Doctor is different, even when he might think one is a human being. For giving a man the potential of a Doctor but a weakness of a human. I mean, that's the beauty of his story. And as we referenced before, with Martha happening to be black, to then put the black companion in a 1913 British public school as a servant scrubbing the floor. I mean, I can see why that's made people uncomfortable with a BLM lens on it in more modern times. But I thought it was brave. Because, of course, originally Human Nature was a Doctor Who New Adventures novel. Got the same writer.
Which featured the 7th Doctor.
Which was the 7th Doctor and Ace. But in other respects, the same story, the family of blood and so forth. So, if Cornell had adapted this the year before or a year later, it would have been a white companion. But it just so happens that the adaptation was in series 3. And I think that he, I'm not a Paul Cornell fanboy, because I think he's a bit of an arsehole, actually. But he did a very good job of adapting his story to reflect the current makeup of the show. And I really have no problem with what he did in his script. And I think that the fact that people objected to Human Nature being allowed to be part of a Doctor Who watch along Was it actually allowed him to watch along in the end? I can't remember. I know World Enough in Time eventually got shown, but it was cancelled at first because looking back from 2021 at the time, it looked too contentious. This story's had its problems with modern fandom, but then this modern fandom's its own problems. But for me, it's just stellar, absolutely stellar, and also it's one of the Doctor Who stories that my mates would watch, because my mates are not Doctor Who fans like I am. But they'll watch other things. They might watch Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica or Babylon 5. We want a bit more of a sort of military wop in their science fiction. So that I've seen as a bit of a softie by some of my friends for liking Doctor Who, but I don't mind. But this story is one that they watch and that we really enjoyed. And there's so much delightful acting throughout. And especially in the climax of part 2, with the Doctor as human John Smith, just bumbling about, falling against things, and then the switch, and all of a sudden the glasses go on, and I don't like the look of that. You're backed up. That's going to back up and explode. If I were you, I'd run. Brilliant. Now that's the Doctor, and then the fury of the Doctor as well, with the punishments he metes out to the family. It has a mythological element to it. The Doctor there is sort of dealt with in a very similar way, almost to a character like the Sandman, as a sort of mythic avatar, able to do these mythic godlike things. As of punishing somebody by throwing them into a black hole, or locking them behind all mirrors forevermore, or making them a scarecrow forever. And pretty harsh punishments on the whole. But that's because the Doctor had given them the chance to just ignore him and let it lie, and not do what they insisted on doing. So, it's become, well, you put it on yourself. This is what you get now. And then also the romance with the Doctor and Nurse Redfern, and how touching that is, and how heartbreaking when she realizes the man she's fallen in love with has got to die, and this scary stranger take his place. I just think it's delightful, it's beautiful, and then it's a shame that Gobby hasn't made it back yet, because I know that he would have a lot to say about how this story deals with remembrance. So when he does manage to return, we should perhaps ask him about that very point. But the whole Timothy thing, and I've got the guts to, even though I know the future, I've got the guts to face it and see my way through it. And then there he is as an old man at the end, and he recognises the Doctor and Martha, and that's that smile with so much sadness behind the eyes. Delightful acting. Just this is top quality. This is top quality production. I mean, I think my score is going to be pretty obvious here, but let's get your input, because I've said quite a bit there. Give me the lowdown.
Yeah, this episode, I think, just does everything perfectly. I love the historical setting. I think the exploration of the society there, and then the architecture of the school, I think it does give you a very immersive experience. I may not be going chronologically with these. I've just, I'm going to just have a massive brain dump right here. The ending where the Doctor serves out the punishments to the family, I think, was very chilling, because you have the Doctor essentially condemning these people to eternal death while they're still alive and able to feel this pain. And I think the idea that the Doctor didn't run away because he was scared that they would defeat him or anything. He ran away because he didn't want to unleash all that darkness and rage. I think that was a very good sort of flip on the expectation that the audience had, that these people are such a threat, therefore the Doctor has to run away. No, the Doctor had to run away because he was too afraid of having to give into that darkness, which eventually he did. I think that the acting in this
I mean,
episode is
he didn't want the conflict.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he didn't want the conflict, and at the same time, he couldn't allow them to get what he wanted.
Yeah.
So he tried a different way, didn't he? He tried not to be that destructive last of the Time Lords. But when they insisted on doing it anyway and had to go through all that bullshit, it was a bit like, that's that. Okay, now you're gonna get it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it is a strange character behaviour, isn't it? If you think of it that way, you know, it's certainly shown extremes of the Doctor's character. But it's like, okay, don't mess. Just do not mess. You know, do not cross that line, or you will really, really know about it. You know, because what happens to the family, you know, if they'd have just died their natural death, like the sort of mayfly sort of creatures that they really were, it would have been so much better for everybody, especially them. You know, but they wanted the power of the Time Lords, and they got it. And it's very similar to the judgment of Rassilon against Barusa in Five Doctors, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the acting in this episode is some of the best as well. Like when John Smith is breaking down about the fact that he has to essentially die. He can't have this life that he's been given visions of, which is so
and
nice.
It's a real death. It's a real death. It's not just getting his memories back. It's the death of that whole personality.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know, we shan't beat around the bush. This is both parts straight A+.
Yeah,
Modern
A+++++.
Modern Doctor Who at its very, very best, and a story which would always be appropriate to show anyone, to show just how good modern Doctor Who can be. There we are. That's, you know, full credit to Paul Cornell. Of course, it was the second script after Father's Day was the original script for Series 1. Sadako gives it a C, but that's a lot better than the other scores. So, you know, it's coming off the floor at least. But at the heart of the Tennant era. And it doesn't stop, because just when you thought that was a height, oh my God, Blink. Has any story been more influential in Modern Who than Blink?
No, this is the one that people always say is like one of the best episodes ever made.
Yes. Yes, they do. Stephen Moffat, his third script for NuWho. And it is the proverbial lightning in the bottle script. So much so that even when Stephen Moffat's been writing The Weeping Angels, he hasn't quite managed to get the fear, the creepy fear factor the same as he got it in Blink.
I think the reason for that is because in this episode there is just so much mystery to them, but in like the Time of Angels and I forget what the other story's called, he actually shows them moving, which removes all that mystery, because the rule that is set up is that the Weeping Angels aren't stone statues. They only appear that way when they're observed. So the idea of Amy closing her eyes and then somehow they think that she can see them and therefore that's why they're statues, it makes no sense, because it's a biological fact. It's not a choice, like the Doctor explains.
It's a quantum rule of the universe.
Yeah, so it makes no sense for those future writing decisions.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, with Blink itself, one of the key things that adds to the fear factor of the story is that the Doctor is removed from the situation. The Doctor's effectively trapped on the telly with these video messages from the past. You know, so he can't swoop in with his sonic screwdriver and just sonic it and fix it for you. You know, and Sally Sparrow is a wonderfully written, strong character. You know, a sensitive, vulnerable, strong female character. So just a beautiful piece of writing. You know, everybody always says that what a fantastic companion Sally Sparrow would make. Perhaps if RTD had made a 5th series, it would have been Sally Sparrow as the next companion. Quite possible.
Yeah, I
Quite
think she was a
possible.
very
And
likable character.
and it's surprising in a way, but Moffat himself didn't reuse the character. But it's because it's all put on her shoulders, and the shocking nature of the way that the angels attack by using time to attack you, by eating the years of your life, by effectively making you waste the years of your life and eating that. You know, what a bizarre concept. But when you look at one and you zapped back 100 years in time, you know, well, it wasn't quite 100 years, was it? But you know, I mean, what a frightening concept, because you know, literally the angels will steal your life from you. You know, because you can't. Most of us can't time travel. So if we ended up dumped 100 years in the past, we'd lose everything. We'd lose our families, we'd lose our friends, we'd lose our careers, our jobs, our places in society. We'd lose everything. It would be shocking. And how oppressive it would be to live knowing that every moment of your life was providing food for one of these creatures. It's horrifying. So, you know, there's these elements which were set up with the angels just give the mind so many places to go to make them so much more scary than than the screen could ever make them alone. This is why they're the most effective NuWho monster, because they're the most like a classic monster. Where the monsters that really succeeded were the monsters that made you think about them in the week between the episodes. And the angels just make such an impact, you know, that they instantly establish themselves as an epic part of the Doctor Who universe, and immediately, you know, they became the face of NuWho innovation, which there hasn't been nearly enough of, in my opinion. I mean, Moffat tried in series 5 with the Silence, which were partly successful, but nothing like as successful as Weeping Angels. But on the other hand, we've had the two-parter in series 5, and then the Angels themselves have just been used as bit players. The same as the Daleks and Cybermen, you know, with an angel popping up here and then, and oh look, here's one of the catacombs of Gallifrey, and so on, until we got Village of the Angels in Flux, and that was in Flux, and the story that was set up as part 4 was good enough as it in its own right per se, but then it completely demolished itself by undermining itself with a stupid cliffhanger that just destroyed its own the credibility of the Angels afterwards. Because oh yeah, turning into a stone angel, oh, it's nothing, you know. So that's very damaging, I think, to Weeping Angels. But this is them at their original and at their best. And this is just an epic 45 minutes of television on every single level. What did you? I mean, what would you say about Blink?
Yeah, it's very eerie. It's very creepy. I love it. I think that in the future, I mean, we did have Turn Left in series 4, but apart from that, we haven't had many Doctor Light episodes. Do you think that's something that Russell should integrate into the new era?
Well, I definitely think that you can have stories where the Doctor appears very little and still has a very powerful impact. You know, I mean, the show, of course, it has experimented with Doctor Light episodes before. I mean, this wasn't the first time. There was there was Love and Monsters in series 2, and I mean, I think there's always a place to show the Doctor from his absence as well as his presence, and he can be just as powerful from not being there as from being there, because of what knowledge of the Doctor inspires in other people. You know, and that's all part of the character's mystery, strength, and everything else. You know, so I just think Moffat pulled off a blinder here. He used all his craft to make the best Doctor Who episode he could, and I'm sure that he is rightly very proud of it. Who knows? Moffat may bring the Weeping Angels back, because we now know that he is going to be writing for series 14. You know, or perhaps he's going to come up with something completely new, which of course is always good. But with Blink, I mean, there's no option, is there? If we're going to score any episode anywhere, I mean, this is the A+ story of the series. It's
Yeah.
unmissably good. It's just unmissably good. Even if you hate NuWho, yeah, it's still unmissably good. And
Yeah, I
everybody's
agree with
just.
that.
So we're rocking along through series 3 now, boys. Just checking up. We've got comments here. Sadako says, I did find it amusing when Sally's enemy started getting followed by some bloke. Hey, that's what happens when a hot woman turns up in the middle of a field. You don't leave her alone. You follow her. That's the 1920s way of getting a wife, because she does end up marrying that guy, doesn't she? You know. But the first person you meet in a new time, and that's not unfamiliar from how the Doctor went on to feel about Amy. Sadako also says, I think the angel sequence in Flux Part 1 was one of their scariest showings in a while. Flux Part 1? What was in Flux Part 1? Oh, God, I've got to remember. Were the angels in
Absolute
Flux Part
garbage.
1? It's somewhere in that Blancmange imagery. Did they throw some? I've forgotten.
Yeah, Flux is just weird. You have this dog who speaks English in a northern accent. It's very weird. The whole thing is garbage. I just want to erase it.
I remember I got told that I was prejudiced against disabled people over Flux. I had no idea what the hell this J-Bot was talking about, and it was
because the companion of that season has.
Yeah, because I hadn't made anything about it, because I hadn't said anything about it. Oh, look, she's only got one arm. You know, that meant I was a terribly insensitive beast, you see. But the reality is, I just didn't care that the character had one arm. I just didn't actually care at all. Why should I? It's like, you deal with people with disabilities in the real world. The worst people will go, oh, I'm going to stare at your disability. That's all I can see about you. Just treat people like people. If they're missing an arm, so what? Unless it's something that impacts how you relate to them, and they're saying, hey, can you help me out with this because I'm missing an arm? It doesn't matter if someone's missing an arm or a leg or something, and got a prosthetic or whatever else. It's bizarre, the attitude that they have, but you have to make a point of celebrating every little difference, and you're some kind of monster if you don't. But anyway, totally diverging off the point now. Let's get back to series 3. And it just gets better and better, because now it's Russell T Davies and Graham Harper giving us another cracking episode, Utopia. We're getting towards the denouement now of the series. We're starting to get into the real meat of mysteries of what makes series 3 tick. And Utopia just gets us off to this amazing start. Here's the TARDIS. It's in Cardiff. It's fueling up with Artron energy from the Time Rift. And lo and behold, Captain Jack Harkness sees that the TARDIS is on the scanners, and he rushes out of Torchwood's base and runs towards the TARDIS. The Doctor sees him coming and thinks, I don't really want to get too close to what Jack's become, and sets the TARDIS in flight. The Doctor, Jack leaps on it, and then you've got this epic opener of the TARDIS hurtling towards the very end of time, space, and the universe, with Jack hanging on to the outside, screaming, Doctor! As he gets sucked along with the vortex, clinging to the outside of the TARDIS. What a great start! It's just fantastic. Boom, boom, boom. Imagery. Boom. Titles. Go.
What they should have done is they should have edited Jack into the TARDIS on the title sequence. That would have been cool.
That would have been hilarious, wouldn't it? Probably too hilarious, but God, that would have been funny. Doctor! Bouncing around all the time. Great idea. Oh, dear. And then, when the TARDIS settles down, it's all got a bit overheated with all that. So it is a bit of a breather. And let's have a look around. And yes, it's the quarry at the end of the universe. And there's a gang of mutant desperados wandering around, and they're not very nice and probably a bit cannibalistic. So, oh look, there's a handy rocket base. We'll run towards that. We'll get inside, and then we'll find out that these are the last human beings, and they're trying to lift off to the last place of safety in a dying universe, but they're stuck because they can't make the rocket go. And well, who do you get? Who do you call? Well, you get a man in, don't you? And the doctor and team are on site to help humanity launch itself off to its final place of salvation. And then there's this elderly professor guy, the guy who's been trying to make this rocket work, and he's got this funny thing. He's got this stopwatch, and it looks just like the fob watch that the Doctor put his consciousness into, back in Family of Blood. And, and then you've got that drama and that sense of dread with the Doctor's both hope and fear in equal measure, as to what the hell this watch might mean. And then, of course, wow, who but Derek Jacobi can flip on a switch to produce such menacing evil from a character who was previously so sweet and kind, and the Master, and he's back. Oops, he gets killed almost straight away, shot by an insect. How embarrassing! But no, he's back again because now he's John Sims. Oh, I've nicked the TARDIS. Screw you, Doctor. Bye. Well, that's utopia, isn't it? Just a wild ride of a story. I loved it at the time, and I still love it today. I love the whole conclusion to Series 3. I think it's some of the NuWho that I've rewatched the most because I find it the most entertaining. I absolutely adored this. How did you find it, mate?
Yeah, this episode is just a classic in my opinion. All the concepts of the future kind and the idea that humanity is making its way to utopia, very interesting. But the thing that sells this episode, as you said, is Derek Jacobi as the Master. The whole thing with the message that the face of Bo left in Gridlock, "You are not alone," and Professor Yana linking together very well. And Jacobi just flicking a switch and going from this lovable, nice old guy to a threat, and he is a proper threat, and he just quickly kills his assistant Chantho, who I have to admit that thing in her speech is kind of annoying. But when the Doctor breaks into that room before the Master steals the TARDIS, and that sort of stare down they have, to anyone who, because of course, this was my first time seeing the Master because I hadn't watched Classic Who when I first watched this. You could already tell from that moment, just by them looking at each other in extreme anger, that there is history between these two, and this is the Doctor's rival.
Real history, real history, absolutely. But you need someone of Jacobi's talent to pull that off, to sell that, and he did. I mean, it's just wonderful acting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of the Master and the Master Classic, I think we're going to talk more about the Master's character when we talk about the following two episodes. Because, this is something where the fan debate has been quite vigorous about the way that John Sims plays the Master. But I would say the way that Jacobi plays the Master is completely in keeping with the classic portrayal. And I think that maybe if making the Master more zany and youthful and crazy was the modern take on him, you still needed to sell it as the same character from Classic, and Jacobi provides that link with the way that he portrayed the Master's seriousness and sinisterness, much more like the sort of machinations of a Peter Pratt Master or an Anthony Amy Master or even a Delgado Master. So I think that the Master's character is best portrayed in Utopia for me, as a fan who knows, who obviously knew classic, at the time I watched this for the first time. But I was just so happy with this. This episode made me joyful. It was a great story. It was a great episode, and really built up my hype for the series end.
Yeah, Sim is a very good master, but as you say, Jacoby is more sort of a traditional classic series master, whereas they very much do ham up Sim's master, not as much as they did in The End of Time, but he is a bit too crazy, and you feel like just saying, right, you may just want to calm it down a little bit here.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. Yeah, but we'll come. So we'll discuss Sim a bit more in a minute. I think we've said what we need to say about Jacoby. It's just awesome that the show managed to get him. Unfortunately, he was never going to be able to play the master long term. It was always going to be a guest master because it's Jacoby, isn't it? He's not going to be part of Doctor Who on an ongoing basis. But it was just wonderful. I'm straight up A-ing Utopia. Well, we haven't actually. No, we must discuss the way that the relationship between the Doctor and Jack develops in this, mustn't we? And I know that both among male and female Doctor Who fans, the white T-shirt scene is very popular. Because this is possibly John Barrowman selling himself as his hottest as Captain Jack in that particular scene. So everybody who fancies John Barrowman went nuts over that. But this idea that Jack's just a bit too strange and different and dangerous for the Doctor now. A bit too different, too almost. It's almost like a piece of time which is broken, and it puts the Doctor's teeth on edge, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's a very different character to what he was in Series 1 now. He has seen a lot of things. He's more like the Doctor, I would say, now, in terms of his reflection and grief and sadness.
Well, he kind of openly says, I've modelled myself on you as an example for how to be immortal, didn't he?
Yeah, and like we see in the next episode, how he sort of reorganized Torchwood. He did it in the Doctor's honor. He did it because he values the Doctor so much, and therefore he's taken the Doctor's values, on board, and that's how he's modelled his life.
But they're sort of reconciling that, and then the Doctor going, well, okay, actually, I'm being unfair, aren't I? Because it's not your fault this happened to you. It's actually mine. Because I made Rose my companion. If he hadn't have done that, Jack would never have been doomed or stroke blessed to be an immortal. Sadako says, I sense RTD was hinting the Doctor could be an irrational bigot. I think maybe the point is to say that we could all be irrational bigots if we're exposed to an idea we're not ready to take on. Even the Doctor. Even somebody as good as the Doctor sometimes has to be persuaded to open their mind about something. I suppose you could say it's showing that there's a humanity in the middle of the Doctor. There is a fallibility in the centre of the Doctor, but it's also good that it shows he can be persuaded, because if somebody was a real bigot, that's the one thing you can't do. So, I think it was another way of showing that the Doctor can have flaws and need a bit of help to see things in the best way sometimes, same as the rest of us. Utopia, I think I've already scored it, haven't I? But it's really, really it's not quite as good as Blink. I think Blink has to be the better episode of the series, but the quality is extraordinary. And then then we're hurtling towards the end of series 3, because we're now in the concluding two-parter, which is of course the Sound of Drums, followed by Last of the Time Lords. Now Sound of Drums follows on immediately from the conclusion of Utopia, where the Doctor manages to jury-rig Jack's vortex manipulator to get them a one-shot, rough as hell ride back to the last place the TARDIS was taken, which he knows to be contemporary Earth. But the Doctor also knows there's been a little bit of a time gap of maybe 4 years. So the Master's had 4 years to do whatever he needs to do. And then there's this drumming. And people are drumming. And the Doctor picks up on it. What's that? What's that? What's that? What is that drumming? And Martha's doing it too. And he goes, why? Why are you drumming? And then there's the posters, and it's election day, and it's vote Saxon. And then the Doctor realizes, oh my God, the Master is the new Prime Minister. Start episode. So, what a great way to bring in major stakes. The Master is in charge of the United Kingdom. Just incredible.
I love how this whole thing was set up across the entire season. On the Earth-based episodes, you see the Vote Saxon posters, and also if you watch Torchwood in the first season, there's the Vote Saxon posters everywhere. There's a lot of continuity there.
It's all, and in fact, isn't there a tease for Saxon in Army of Ghosts? Didn't somebody make a line? You must tell Mr. Saxon about this or something. Isn't there even a Saxon mention then?
Yeah, there was. Yes, there was, and guess what? I'm back.
Yay! Oh, Goppy, we've been
I know.
Keep it going, but it's been
I'm
a
never so
desert
sorry.
without you.
Yeah, please accept my apologies. It went on a lot longer than I intended. Everything's sorted.
They always do, don't they? You're all good now. Good.
It's all sorted. It got a little bit dodgy for a bit, but we're okay. Let's crack on. Carry on.
We have cracked on.
I know you have.
We're sounded drums last of the Time Lords at the moment.
Yeah, I know.
But before we go any further, we both said to ourselves that when you get back, we're going to come back to Family of Blood. Right. Because we'd like to know your reaction to the ending of part 2 and how the story deals with the whole question of remembrance. You're the perfect person to ask.
I think it was handled exceedingly well. It was you could tell how well it was handled. It moved me to tears. That's how it moved. That's how well it, in my humble opinion, it moved me to tears. And if it's something that moves me to tears, I don't cry very often, but that moved me to tears.
Well, I've got an equally soft centre because it definitely moved me to tears as well. It was extremely moving.
Oh, it was so brilliantly written and so brilliantly acted. It was just perfection. And there's no other way of putting it, to be fair, because I sat there.
It put the whole loss of all of those boys' lives into context, didn't it?
Massively into context, and it's a rare thing when TV and film or even radio does that, and it has a special place in my heart, that particular ending, because it was just wonderful. It really, really was. Absolutely.
Well, we gave Family of Blood the really high marks.
Absolutely.
As you might expect.
Absolutely. But it was. I even thinking about it now is putting a lump in my throat. To be fair, so it was
fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Gobby, because I know that put a lump in your throat. It really does put a lump in your throat.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
For very real reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's why it matters when television gets these things so right.
Oh, yeah, when it gets it right, it
means
a lot. It does mean a lot.
But that story raised those issues, but dealt with them too.
Dealt with them brilliantly.
Yes,
absolutely brilliantly.
Absolutely.
It was just a masterpiece of writing. And acting, they acted it so well as well. So
excellent on both fronts. I can't disagree one little bit. I said Paul Cornell, he's a bit of an arsehole.
But every now and again, he gets
real talent.
Yeah,
he has real talent.
Absolutely.
Which brings us back to the sound of drums. So we've started the episode. The Master's just been discovered to be the Prime Minister. The Doctor and Martha are deep in the crap, and Jack, of course. So they start trying to tackle the situation. And very quickly, Martha realizes that the master knows everything about her and is just waiting for her to come back, and that her family is under threat. The doctor realizes too this is bound to be a trap, but they try to recover Martha's family, and they find out that actually no, it wasn't exactly what they said. It was a trap. They were waiting for them. And Martha's flat gets blown up because the master's put TNT behind her TV. And then she sees her mum and dad getting carted off by the security forces, and her mum is desperately trying to get her away from the doctor because she thinks that's the best way to save Martha. Her dad sees it differently and realizes that Martha's got to run and forget about them. She's got to save herself. I know, that the domestic side of NuWho had its critics.
Yeah.
But I actually think that the way that Martha's family gets pulled into the stakes here is scary and chilling.
Yeah.
Because if the young viewer identifies with the companion, and then the companion is seeing their family slammed up in prison, so is the young viewer considering how would I react if my family was slammed up in prison. So
exactly,
it's a great piece of story building there. And then of course the master, oh well, of course he's got his own plans, and he's just playing the whole situation with his, oh look, it's the Toclafane, they're going to come and make first contact, and the whole thing with the American president, everything else, it's all set up so that this grand unveiling of the Toclafane is going to take place on the Valiant aircraft carrier. And wasn't that a great piece of military sci-fi design?
Oh, imagine.
And totally Avengers, of course.
Well, I was about to mention it.
This is before the Avengers movies, isn't it? They didn't start until about 5 years later. So, aircraft carrier in the sky.
Well,
great.
Let's be honest. We did
modern sci-fi.
Yeah, we did it with Captain Scarlet.
It was the very Captain Scarlet. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before we get to the grand unveiling, of course, the master loves to play with his food.
Oh, of course.
So he's got the Doctor, Martha, and Jack, just having to run for their lives. Every apparatus of the state is after them. The Doctor comes up with a defense by adapting TARDIS keys into perception filters.
Yep.
And we also, for the first time in this episode, we see Gallifrey. We actually see Gallifrey.
Yeah, we do.
With the sequence, the Doctor remembering that old planet with orange skies. That's the first view of Gallifrey we get in NuWho, and it is stunning.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It is absolutely stunning. And so the show is delivering on developing the lore. At the same time, because Jack's asking a very simple question: who the hell is this master dude then? And the Doctor's trying to explain without looking guilty for not stopping him umpteen times across the millennia. But then we are all brought to, we've got to stop the master, we've got to stop what's going on. They get on board the Valiant, but no, it's not going to happen. The master was ready for them. He's got his laser screwdriver, thank you very much. And it stops her. It stops her. He stops her attempt to thwart his plan, and the sky literally rips open, and thousands upon thousands of these globes start pouring in. And then when they meet people, they start shooting them. Oh no, God, terror! It's not peaceful first contact after all. It's an alien invasion. It's the Toclafane. And that leaves Jack taken out, the Doctor taken out, and Martha to escape with a vortex manipulator to wander the Earth as the end of civilization as we know it comes about all around her, cut off from the Doctor, alone. And that's the conclusion to part one. So let's deal with part one before we deal with part two. GoldenagedGeek, hit me with it. How did you find it?
I think this episode is very good. The idea of the master being accepted into the country and the whole world has sort of been brainwashed to sort of respect him, agree with him, follow his ideas is very dangerous. I think Russell's commentary, I mean, we criticize modern storytelling for their too much focus on politics, but I think this episode is where it was done very well because it was very much balanced. It wasn't just pointing out any names, even though if you look into it, you probably you could make your own assumptions from it. But I think I thought it was done very well, and I think I think the idea of the Toclafane as well, it's very shocking. I mean, on the surface, they're very much just like little silly
we
alien
get
things.
we get the big reveal in the next part, don't we, of who the Toclafane actually are. So
Yeah, and it's very dark.
Yes. But even so, even before we know that, they're strange and scary, aren't they? And the sight of thousands of them just pouring in through a literal rip in the sky, it's great imagery.
Oh, it's awesome.
And they all have like a childlike voice, which again makes it very creepy. When you put young children in horror, it always amps it up a bit.
Oh God, yeah, don't it? It works so well, doesn't it? It is brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I loved it. I love it. I absolutely love every bit of it.
So is Sound of Drums an A?
I'd give it an A- personally.
A-?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
is it an A? I mean, because we need to talk about John Sims, don't we?
Well, yes.
Because for some people, there's no way they'd agree with this episode as an A because they really can't stand the way that John Sims played the Master.
That's true. That's true. I understand that.
We've got some of those people in the comments, I reckon.
Probably.
So I want to tackle that. I mean, I personally didn't like having a zanier, crazier Master. I felt it was way overboard. And I didn't like the Master as a madman because the Master was never mad.
No, yeah, you're right. He never was mad. No.
Not to the point of irrational, crazy mad, anyway. I mean, you could mad obsessed, perhaps, but not this kind of mad. He was always a cold, nasty, cold, calculating, deliberate evil, especially from the 70s. When he was emaciated Master, and the sort of the Master that was plotting his way through Deadly Assassin and Keeper of Traken. So I didn't really understand the choice. I did like the different image of the Master. I like going with a blonde Master. I thought that was an interesting choice. To not to follow the template which had been set down before, but to do something original with how he looked. But I just felt I mean, in those zany moments, you never felt like the Master at all. Well, not to us older fans. No, I think it was very difficult what we were being asked to accept. But then I think what the show's asked us to accept as the Master since got even worse. Not to admit that one. Sacha Dhawan is a fantastic actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think that his association from the show, from playing the part of Boris Hussein in Adventures in Time and Space, was just showed how much charm he has.
Yeah.
I would really have put Sacha Dhawan on a list of people who could play the Doctor. His acting is that good. Yeah, but then what he was given. Oh God.
Well, yeah, exactly. It wasn't the greatest material, was it? Let's be honest.
I mean, that was proper pantomime villain level writing. There was no intelligence in that writing at all. And it's just psychotic for the sake of being stupid. So that version of the Master, the Sims Master, looks so much better compared to that.
Well, yeah,
but still difficult. But we got there in the end. I think the way that Sims brought it down to actually play into menace with the Doctor Falls.
Yeah.
I think again showed it wasn't the actor's fault, but I don't really vibe with what they were going with, and I do think it was over the top.
Yeah,
Having said that, I don't find it unwatchable, and at least this version of the Master does get a decent arc with a redemption, of course. In Enderpine Part 2.
yeah.
So it didn't stay here. Whereas I think the Dewan Master unfortunately didn't go anywhere.
No, it just yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
And then the Missy version of the Master, I think, is a whole other thing that will lead to Series 8.
Yeah, true.
We won't try to address that now. But,
No.
again, probably a better portrayal of a Master, but still over the top. But just not as egregious as the way that Sims plays it, especially here with the gas mask scene and the unveiling Topherphane scene. I struggle with that. So I would tend to knock it down on that.
Fair enough.
And go to but the overall quality of the episode is still very good. It's still very enjoyable. I'm going to go B+.
Fair enough. That's fair enough.
What about you, Golden Age Geek? For Sound of Drums?
I would say A- for me.
A-. So Gobby?
Yeah.
Yeah, A- again.
Right.
A-.
I'm respecting the issues of his Master's characterization by
I
taking
agree.
it down a bit for that, because I think it deserves to be recognized that
that's fair enough.
This was at the least a very different way of doing it, but it's never going to suit everybody.
Well, no, it wouldn't. No, that's right. It's gonna.
Have we got anybody who really wants to stick up for the way that John Sims played the Master?
Hold on. We have. Let's see. Where was it? I'm sure I did see somebody in the chat. Trying to find it. See, now I can't find it. I've been too busy talking to other people.
Yeah,
my brain's not quite switched back on yet.
Well, let me see. Miranda says, when Sims was messing about in the cabinet room, I switched off. Tardy Spider says, Sims was mad and evil, just not the essence of pure controlled evil, like Delgado. I completely agree. Estlin Burkholder, Sims Master is bad, not the actor's fault. Which also we agree with. Which Miranda also agrees with. It was the writing, and the writing and the direction, I think. Okay. I think that's covered it. Really. I can't see anything else.
Yeah, I can't see anything else.
Okay. So then we've got this excellent conclusion. The Doctor's a prisoner. Jack's a prisoner. Martha's on the loose. And then after that, we've got a time jump of a whole year.
Yes, exactly.
And we discover in Last of the Time Lords that Martha's been wandering the Earth, telling them a story and giving them all a message. At the same time, the Doctor is the Master's pet.
Pet for all intents and purposes.
And the Master's aged him, so now he's an old man kept in a cage. And the Master's tormenting him with what he's done to humanity. And the Jones family are also being forced to be the Master's slaves. Jack's being kept a prisoner. And early in the episode, we see them attempt to enact a plan, but it just doesn't quite work out, and it's a disaster. And the upshot of it is that the Doctor is aged even more.
Oh yeah.
And turned into a totally wizened, aged Doctor who's just this tiny little gnome-like being. After being aged beyond belief by the Lazarus technology. So then, it's even worse. How's the Doctor going to get out of that?
Well, yeah.
And we discover that the Master's turned the entire planet into a rocket factory, but he's going to unleash the Toclophane across the galaxy, using Earth as the basis for his new intergalactic war. And it's all looking very real. It's all looking very happening. And what the hell is going to stop him? But then Martha's investigations into the Toclophane exposed the awful truth that inside each of the spheres is a human head,
Mm.
and that these are the descendants of those colonists to Utopia.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
with the universe collapsing and time ending at the end of the universe, the Toclophane are what humanity became as it desperately tried to innovate and evolve into a form in which it could survive. Um, but even the retreating to the optimistic mindset of children didn't help them to have the kind of attitude to survive as a species, and the masters obviously, committed to rescuing them. But at the same time, this is what the master himself did to them. So, it's just a beautifully evil layer upon layer there of how the master has created this ultimate enemy out of humanity itself.
Yeah.
And, the whole thing is just completely heartbreaking. But finding that out, and also that the signal that the master's been using to keep everybody compliant and docile is being put through the Archangel network, and then Martha's plan it becomes unveiled to use the network to power up the Doctor psychically. To stop the master before it's finally too late, which of course is how that all plays out.
Yeah.
And the Doctor's Lazarus-like regeneration into a glowing godlike being, just for a few moments, powered by the psychic might of the human race. Pretty dramatic stuff. And then we get the confrontation between the Doctor and the Master, where they're wrestling over the fate of the planet, but they jump back to the Valiant, but then the Master is shot down by the woman he's abused so much. And he refuses to regenerate and dies, and he's buried at the very end. But then there's also like a minimalist ring thing going on.
Yeah.
So, cue evil laugh. You might as well have had a caption with it, the master.
You might as well, yeah.
But that was the conclusion. And, good, fun, exciting stuff it was. How did you guys find it? Let's start with you, Goppy. How did you find the conclusion to Series 3?
I enjoyed it. I did like the fact that humanity was portrayed as it is technically the most evilest thing of the universe when it comes down to it. Because we are at times, unfortunately. It's one of our poor sort of attributes.
That's who we are when ethics don't matter.
Exactly.
We become monsters.
We become absolute monsters. And from personal experience, I've seen what monsters we can actually become.
This is exactly why we call the J-bots toxic in fandom.
Yeah.
Because they have no concern over how they treat others.
No.
They always feel entitled to abuse others as much as they like, or at the same time they demand sympathy and special treatment every step of the way. And it's just so goddamn infuriating that somebody can be that lost to themselves, But then it's very much the kind of the human being that the master believes in, isn't it?
Yes, that's exactly.
A humanity that is lost.
A humanity that's lost.
That's what he's always trying to tell the Doctor: is humanity's lost. You're wasting your time.
Yeah, basically.
But that's also because this is our nature when we're not exercising our better natures.
Exactly.
This is why morality and ethics matter.
Yep, absolutely, 100%.
That's the only way you get a world which isn't run by monsters.
Yep.
And that requires standing up. That requires courage. That requires determination. It requires suffering. It requires sacrifice. And that's the moral of Martha Jones's story.
Exactly. I was about to say that is exactly what it is. It's about
standing up. She's showing the opposite to the master's cynicism.
Exactly. And that and in the world with the world we're in now, we need the same thing. We need people to stand up and be brave and not allow these narrow-minded individuals. I'm being very polite, very polite, to take over because it never ends well.
Well,
It never
let's
ends
hope.
well.
Let's hope that RTD can bring back some
Yes,
actual
let's
decent
hope.
story messaging,
Yeah,
not
exactly,
ideology point scoring.
exactly.
You know,
Absolutely
so
right.
I mean, this is
Absolutely
why
right.
this is what's showing what was so good about Russell writing back in 2007
Yep.
is how he was able to bring in those things. We've just done a little bit of dibble and dabbling there, and just said, look, there are actually all these themes underneath this story, and that is always remarkable quality writing. Now, whether the story worked for people or not, that the quality of writing is there in it.
Yeah,
So
it's very.
I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, he's very clever.
I've really enjoyed watching this as a three parter binge.
Yeah, I
I think
agree.
it's actually the
Great character.
closest NuWho got to a 6-parter
Yeah,
in
absolutely
what
agree.
would be a classic 6-part in terms of runtime.
Yeah,
So I've always enjoyed the series 3 arc, and I mean, of course, the ending of the story is a
well, yeah,
wonderful end for Martha's arc that year. And
yes, it was.
earlier in the stream, Gobby, I said that what's so great about the choice that Martha Jones makes is that it's such a positive message.
Yeah, of course it
In
is.
that if you're in a situation which actually is hopeless, that actually can never work, and you know that, then the best thing you could do for yourself is to pick yourself up and leave it.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
that's a very unusual message. It's not a
It is.
message which is telegraphed through television often.
No,
But I think as life advice, as an example of true female empowerment, I think it was excellent.
brilliant, absolutely fantastic. It was. See, that's the thing with RTD. He's very clever with his writing. As Golden Age Geek said, if you look at these two, you can see, if you just dig a little bit deeper, you can see who the certain characters are in real life. But he's so subtle in the way he does it. You can see that, but it's not that, and that's what I enjoy so much.
Let me pass on some real life wisdom here. This is not coming from Doctor Who fandom. This is real philosophical life wisdom for everybody going through their lives. And if you think about what I'm about to tell you, you'll find out that this is correct, and it's always correct. For any problem, there are only 3 responses. Doesn't matter what the problem is, there's only 3 possible responses. And once you understand this, it's very helpful to empower yourself in your own life. You can accept it, you can change it, or you can leave it. That's the
Absolutely
only 3 responses to any problem. Work problem. I can't get on with my boss. Accept it, change it, or leave it. The
Yeah.
relationship problems. I can't get on with my spouse. Accept it, change it, or leave it. There's
Yep.
no other
Other
responses.
responses. There is nothing.
So for Martha to actually demonstrate the leave it option and make it positive, to stand out from the conclusion of this episode.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And so
a very good message to give people, to let them know that actually walking away from something that isn't right for you is always an option. So
yeah,
I respect Martha's character arc so much, and you know, when I hear so much crap spoken these days, you know, wow, they just don't understand what they're looking at.
No,
and yet, time properly, I left it, John, and that's why I've never. That's why I always respect you for that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I've never tried to persuade you that you shouldn't leave it, or you know, you've done it. You've done what was right for you, and that's what we should all do, because that's our freedom, our free will, and our choice. That's our power.
Yeah.
So
it is our power.
Never give that away.
There you go, mate.
Right, let's do some scores. I love the episode. A+. Golden Age Geek.
Oh yes, I agree. Yeah,
I would say A. I would, yeah. it's the gap between your A plus and my A is very small, but I think because I want to save the A pluses for those very good episodes like Blink, Human Nature, I think I'll just leave this one at an A.
Fair play.
Well, that's fair enough. We did give it. I gave Blink an A plus, but
Blink
A
is
plusy plus for Blink. You know,
Blink was absolutely sublime. It was such a pleasure to watch that episode. I really enjoyed Blink. I agree.
We gave it a jolly good thorough talking about while you were dealing with things, Guppy. So
sorry about that, but yes, I can imagine.
We covered it well for you.
Oh no, well, I'll be like everybody else.
You'll have to catch up. Yeah. Hey, you get to enjoy this episode as a
I do.
Exactly. It's not the same without you, mind.
I as I said, it was just. We know. You guys know why. And I'll update both of you at the end of this.
Oh, yeah. We all have to do what we have to do. Right, we've got one more to go. The single most watched episode of NuWho ever, I believe, still to this date. Is that right?
I think so.
Voyage of the Damned.
Voyage of the Damned. Yeah, it took. I'm just brought it up on here. 13.31 million viewers. Wow, that's some watching.
Absolutely freaking enormous.
A massive.
Are these live, says XSM? Yes, it's live.
Of course, we're always live.
Yeah, we're live.
You can tell we're live.
You can enjoy it and you can know it's live.
Yeah, you know it's live because I missed nearly all of it.
Right, okay. So on the number of people who watched this Christmas special, Voyage of the Damned, is the height of Doctor Who Christmas success.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, I love this episode.
It climbed to this was where the show was an institutional fixture in British living rooms. This is where it was unquestionable that the family were going to watch Doctor Who on Christmas Day that year.
Yeah.
So many families made that choice. It was overwhelmingly a huge success. And of course, big point about this episode was it had star draw because it had the simply incomparable Miss Kylie Minogue featuring in the cast. But the premise of the story is, of course, that the Titanic breaks through the walls of the TARDIS right at the end of Last of the Time Lords, leaving the Doctor to make his second final words for that year. And then right at the beginning of his story, the Doctor winds wheel and damage is completely undone and the TARDIS is fixed. So that was lucky.
Yeah, how convenient.
But he then decides, I might as well just land on this here Titanic that is just broken into my ship and find out what the heck's going on. Yeah. And it turns out to be a giant party because it's a cruise liner, and it's not the Titanic of the early 20th century. Messing about with icebergs. No, this is the Titanic in space.
And what a fantastic model. It was absolutely brilliant. I love the ship.
The ship was brilliant. Did well on this one. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, the ship was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So the Doctor starts investigating, as you do. Meets Kylie Minogue, as you would, and then then discovers that there's something a little bit fishy about this whole business. Because this cruise line seems to be in financial trouble, and there's this bloke with a gold tooth who keeps smiling out of all the view screens. So what's going on with that? He blags the lift down to Earth and has a muck about on Christmas Eve with Astrid Peck, as Kylie's character is called. Letting her know about the joy of travel and life on Earth and how she finds it all so amazing. And of course, there he is with his reindeer hat. Was it a reindeer or was it just a woolly hat this time? It was Bernard Cribbins.
Oh yeah, antlers on. I'm sure it had that. Yeah,
Doctor Who for the first time. Yeah, we peaked too early. We almost put it in the Runaway Bride, because
we did.
So we got it right. This is where Bernard turns up. And he's full of respect for Her Majesty, who's staying at home this year at Buckingham Palace despite the threat of the bleeding aliens.
Oh, yes. God bless her.
Which is all very amusing. But then he's back up to the ship. But then, oh dear, meteor storm. Oops. And the captain seems to have this funny idea about deliberately wrecking the ship.
Strange.
So he takes the shields down and the meteorite's hit, and suddenly the Titanic's in a lot of trouble and slowly sinking towards Earth. So then, we get this scramble through the wreckage of the Doctor trying to keep this little party of himself, Astrid, and some of the other guests together to get through the wrecked ship and try to find out how to save it.
Yeah.
We get what's quite an infamous little Tennant speech where he does the last of the Time Lord's Constellation of Castorberus speech.
Yes. Which was rendered completely pointless in the.
Yes, all of that,
All that, yes.
But at the same time, it's kind of like we go, you what?
Yeah.
What? What?
Yeah.
So it takes the mick out of him a little bit too, with his sense of self-importance, But
yeah,
in fact, I underneath my happy exterior, there's the scary man, the last of the Time Lords who could do everything.
Yeah.
So the story progresses, and we've got these robot hosts doing a bit of robots of death act, sort of mopping up what's left of the guests.
Yes.
So it's all become a very deadly situation on this voyage of the damned. But it turns out that Gold Tooth Bloke is behind it all, and he's been hiding in his life support machine because he doesn't really look like he does in the pictures anymore. Down in the basement, and he wants to bring his own company down. So something with insurance, not sure.
Yeah. Basically, it's because he wants to cause the crash so they can blame the directors of the company because for revenge. And the captain does it because if I remember, he's terminally ill, and he promises to look after. He promises to look after his family and such things. Good old collusion and greed. Wonderful.
Because I could promise you, when you are terminally ill, it's the first thing you want to do is massacre complete strangers, just to get paid to give it to your own family.
Well, of course, yes.
It's a perfectly natural reaction that everyone who's terminally ill goes through. It's like a sort of Fugazi moment. No, not really. The motivations of the characters in this story has come under some criticism.
Yeah, but it happens. It happened.
Well, it did happen. Yeah, it definitely did happen. Yeah. But I mean, that was me being understated, just in case we got some American listening. That was understated. So actually, the through line to the plot of this story has been compared to dog shit on more than one occasion.
Yeah, just a few times. Yeah,
because it doesn't entirely. But it's Christmas. Shut up. Stick a bit of pie in your hole. Have a bit of sherry. Woo!
Yeah, be happy. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Don't ask questions.
Yes, exactly. Shush. Just sit back and enjoy.
You might fail to just sit back and enjoy the fantastic vista of the Titanic swooping in and up and over Buckingham Palace with the Queen going, "Thank you, Doctor," at the very end.
Yes, indeed.
In a pure piece of Christmas schmaltzy cringe. Such as it's hard to deny. Now I need to go on mute for just a moment, so I'm going to hand over to Golden Age Geek.
Yes, crack on, Golden Age Geek. Let's hear what you think.
This episode I've always found to be a good one, and I think the thing that Russell did very well in his era was blending the magic and sci-fi together, and I feel like this episode very much does feel magical, not only in its Christmas setting and theme, but in everything. And I think the music and the Doctor in Russell's era has always had this sort of connotation of being a lonely god. He is sort of like a space Jesus. And I think that the music in this episode very much complements that. I am very fond of the scene where the Doctor clicks his fingers and the angels come along and he like flies up in the air. I think that was beautiful symbolism right there.
Absolutely. Can't deny that. Yeah. Belly's a little bit, yeah.
You have Tennant in his Converse just flying in the air.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's Christmas. Enjoy yourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. Oh,
I am back.
You're right, mate. You're okay.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Just give him instructions to my helper. You know.
Oh, well, fair enough. Yeah, so we.
But we're nearly done here anyway, aren't we? So.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
So have you sort of summed up to your satisfaction, Golden Age Geek?
Yeah, I love this episode.
You love it. You love it. Okay, you love it. I thought, which is great because it's supposed to be enjoyed. I mean, you know, this is definitely in the romp category of stories.
Oh, absolutely. It's a good story to sit down with the wife and kids and watch, and just have an enjoyable romp. And
yes, if you want to watch characters lemming themselves off precipices time and time again.
It's great. It's great family viewing.
Must be Christmas, Daddy. Where's the nice Fawley lady? Yeah, splat. You know,
there she goes. Oh well. Any case, moving on.
It's not Christmas till the lady's gone splat.
Yeah. It's not proper Christmas now, is it? No. I mean, I totally enjoyed this, but I mean, not mainly
as Matt Pounder says, you know, who doesn't enjoy a good disaster movie at Christmas? It's totally tradition, you know. Towering Inferno, the rest of it we used to put on. Oh my word!
Oh God, yeah. All those.
Don't forget the Poseidon Adventure.
Oh, that's right. I was just about to mention the Poseidon
Adventure, isn't it? Yeah. So
standard. They don't make good disaster movies anymore. They really don't.
I do really like Kylie Minogue.
Oh yeah, who doesn't?
You know, so. Just because the motivations of the antagonist aren't exactly the best defined.
Well, no,
it doesn't ruin the whole thing.
No.
Don't think about this one too closely.
Just enjoy it.
Still great fun. I'm going to come out with a B+ for it.
Yeah, I'll give it an A-. I'll give it an A-. It would have been a B+, but Kylie Minogue was in it, so it's an A-.
And I'll give it an A.
You'll give it an A. Look, I think we should recognise, right? Looking at all the marks we've given tonight, I don't think there's been another series of Doctor Who we've actually given such consistently high marks for. I mean, what would you have? 1C for 42 this season?
Yeah, that's it.
You know, I mean, we should recognise just how good the show was at this time creatively. Now, look, you could take issue with RTD's whole approach to the creativity of Doctor Who. You could say that RTD should look at Doctor Who entirely differently to how it did. Same with Moffat. So, you know, you can take issue with their overall take on the show, but within the parameters that RTD set himself, within how RTD defined his version of the show, Series 3 was just creatively on absolute stride, learning from earlier missteps to deliver extremely solid season of genre television.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think if Series 3 had not been so good, perhaps the reputation of NuWho would have taken a bigger knock earlier.
Yeah, I agree with that. This was a great series.
So this was a great time for the show to build on even greater success.
Exactly.
And that therefore doesn't make it a surprise that the final story of the production plot, the Christmas 2007 special, was the height of viewer popularity.
No, God, yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, for as much as there's some of us as fans who don't rate RTD's era and don't appreciate how he went about it, for how he did go about it, Series 3 was just fantastic. Was just fantastically successful. So,
Yeah.
like it or lump it, nothing vindicates greater than success.
Yep,
Nothing condemns further than failure.
Yep.
You know, and so this series 3 for Chibnall compared to for series 3 for RTD compared to series 13 and Flux for Chibnall, light and day.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's just
absolute salt and pepper, isn't it? I mean, chalk and cheese, all the rest of it. It's just how to get it right and how to fuck it up completely.
Yeah, exactly.
We should be studying season 3 and season 30 in Doctor Who. Should be a required course on all script writing courses from now on.
Yeah, but
and
no,
it would produce infinitely better script writers if it did.
Yeah.
So, for this time in the show, it deserves all the credit we can give it now. Because maybe not next week, maybe not the week after that, maybe not even the week after that, but there is going to be a point where our criticisms of NuWho are going to be a lot stronger than what we got tonight.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the journey.
Exactly.
So we're looking forward to it, and we will be back next week, won't we, for series 4.
Series 4. We're flying through them at the moment. Series 4 indeed.
Well, actually, we'll be back in only 5 days.
Just 5 days. It's a shorter gap this time. This time. And hopefully we won't get any more snow, and hopefully I'll actually manage to be able to...
Can NuWho get even better? Will it rise to even greater heights, or will it crash in ignominy?
Absolutely.
I suppose we'll find out.
We'll find out next time.
And thank you so much for Golden Age Geek for being with us.
Yes.
Will you be able, hopefully you'll be able to join in as well, because it's so good having you with us. And frankly, I'd have been stuffed without you tonight, mate. So
this thing. We got
away with it, right? We could call that a win, but they haven't rebelled. They haven't quit the chat in disgust, so we must have got away with it.
We must have got away with it.
We'll see everybody next week.
Yes, so Golden Age Geek, any summing up before we go?
No, I think everything has been explained very clearly. This season is, I would say, a step up from Series 2, and of course, with next week with Series 4, I'm sure the conversation is going to be very exciting then as well, because I think a lot of episodes in there are very, very tasty for a better word.
Very tasty. Indeed.
Deliciously yummy. They really are.
They certainly are. They certainly are. Right then, so first, please accept my apologies for not being there. I'll explain to the lads a little bit of an update. They know why I had to go. I do apologise for not being here. It's been another fantastic stream. Thank you, Golden Age Geek, because if it wasn't for you, this would have been interesting.
Thank you, Tardy Spider.
No,
Lovely little comment just popped up from Tardy Spider right at the end. Have enjoyed what I was here for. Enjoy your journey through time and space. Love your friends, love your family. God night all, and God bless to you.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What a great comment to finish on. You can't get any better than that, can you?
Yeah, it's why we love Doctor Who.
Exactly, and that's what we do. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next Friday. Goodbye.